Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and we're through 4 weeks of the regular season, and we're coming up on the second week of bye weeks, and it's 4 teams on a bye, which is Jacksonville, Kansas City, New Orleans, and Seattle. A lot of you guys have players from these teams, and this is that point where you got to start making decisions, or you're going to start having empty holes in your lineups. Your benches will, for the most part, fill things, but there are times when it comes to points where you might have to take a hole in your lineup. It usually isn't around week 4, but later in the season when you know you don't want to drop anybody else that you have cut down the fat on, and you're at a situation where most of your roster is bye, you have to take a hole. But either way, this is one of those crucial points in the seasons where you need to start truly making the best effort to grab the waiver claims that you need, because once we start hitting this point, we're about a third of the way through the season, just about there. The wire gets much thinner, very few options. I won't say very few, but far less than this. It's going to be people that are going to emerge along the way, and injuries always prompts that. But at this point, it's a lot of things that are plucked, and you're not going to be able to get certain value. But you got to keep your eyes open when the value is out there. Also, this is that point of the season where some of the standings is starting to take shape. If you're anywhere from 2-2 or better, you're doing just fine. If you're 1-3 or worse, it's not that it's over. I have overcome an 0-3 deficit and won a championship before. I know a lot of people that have. But this is that time where you got to start taking some risks, because there's something going on in your roster that's not allowing you to get over the hump. Sometimes it's just bad luck. 2 straight weeks, week 3 and week 4, I lost both of them within 4 points. Both weeks. So it's like less than a combined 8 points in the last 2 weeks that I've lost combined. So sometimes it's just bad luck. But your roster construction is often a sign of your record, and it says a lot about drafting. Says a lot about some of your choices of who you're starting. But the waivers is where you save it. But before I move into the waiver claims, I'm gonna introduce the prospect of something new for you guys. I was thinking about either Friday evenings or Saturday afternoon doing like a 15-minute answer some questions. If you got some fantasy tips that you want, some trade questions, some game theory questions about strategy, like do you start running back or receiver in your flex, or different things, even start sits. I don't want this to be strictly a start sit type thing, but if you've got questions like I was offered this, the trade questions are very good, or what should you do, coming up next year when you draft? Do you take this? Do you do that, or whatever? Or just any things that'll help you going forward. If you've got some questions you want to have answered, if you guys tweet me with your questions, if you follow me already, you can DM me and tweet me your questions. If it's enough of them and they're good, solid ones, not, like I said, not a ton of start and sit ones, send them to me, and I'll do a little bonus video for you guys every week on, like I said, it'll be Friday evening or Saturday morning. Mostly this is going to be game theory. So if you want something to help you, a lot of the questions y'all ask me on Twitter throughout the week, you can do it now and I'll address it directly. There's some things that a lot of you guys would probably want fleshed out or want discussed. Just bring them to my attention, and if I get enough of it, I'll do it. You can put it in the comments below, but I prefer it on Twitter. So there you go. That's just an option for you. And one other note before I get started, man, I hope you guys took my advice and drafted Matt Ryan, #1 quarterback in fantasy, and he's got a 24-point margin over everybody. So I get some calls wrong, but I had a feeling, and I said it at the beginning of the season. I knew that the hate was going way too far for him, and he's starting to show it. But without further ado, we're going to get right into the waiver pickups for the week. And the first pickup I think is not going to be too much of anybody's surprise is Terrance West. 45% owned right now. He's tied this past week, he tied for 5th among running backs on the week with a nasty 113 yards and a touchdown. Performances like this is what we were wanting from him when he was a rookie in Cleveland. Some of y'all remember that, some of y'all don't, when he came in with Isaiah Crowell, when it was him and him battling for it. But this is what we wanted to see. But more importantly, what this seems to have done to me is put an end to all the Kenneth Dixon and Justin Forsett talk. Kenneth Dixon's going to be in the mix, and some of y'all need to keep an eye out on grabbing him off the waiver wire. But they're talking about waiving Forsett. So right now, until Dixon gets healthy, this is Terrance West's job to lose. And he's blown it before, but we'll see what happens this year. The number 2 option, Carson Wentz. The thing about bye weeks is it's a lot of times out of sight, out of mind. People that wanted to pick him up after week 2's performance, after week 3's performance, were waiting because they knew he wouldn't play in week 4. I knew better. I grabbed him in a league before time, but for all of y'all that have him out there, now is the time to do it. This is the quarterback you want. And more importantly than this is the main reason, why you want to get him. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are underperforming. Marcus Mariota, Carson Palmer, these are guys you drafted in most cases. And more importantly, there are quarterbacks that's injured right now. Also, Carson Palmer again and Cam this week may not play. This is the guy you want to have in on that. And even more important than the injuries and the underperformance is the bye weeks, like I mentioned at the beginning. This is the kind of guy you want that won't be that bad of a step back from the number 1 starter that you have. I don't know for sure if Carson Wentz is going to keep it up, but I'm pretty confident in it. He's shown some poise that very few rookies show. So this is the guy that you want to take a flyer on, and it could be to the point, if he keeps this up, you're deciding who's your number 1 quarterback. So that's why you want him. Number 3, Robert Woods, 10% owned. I grabbed him off the waiver wire in one of my leagues where I lost Sammy Watkins. And as soon as I heard the news, I just grabbed for it because it can't all be LaShawn McCoy. It's just that simple. It can't all be Tyrod. It's just that simple. Somebody's got to catch it. And he didn't disappoint this week with 7 for 89 on 10 targets. That's all you want. If he got a touchdown, you're talking about a great fantasy performance for the week. This is a guy, again, you can never have too many running backs and receivers. This is my top receiver ad of the week. Number 4, Bilal Powell. 36% owned right now, and this is just deja vu. Every year, for the past half decade, Bilal Powell's been in this same situation where he's being partially viewed as the favored running back in a situation where you know it's just not going to last. He won't be a hot commodity for the duration of the year. What he does is he serves for somebody who puts up numbers 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks, and then completely falls off. But every year this happens, every year we're scouring the wire for Bilal Powell for some reason and to do one or the other things, and usually that's to spell bye weeks. And here we are. And this is another unique situation added into this. A lot of people were worried about Matt Forte's running load, what he was getting in the first 2 weeks. And it's looking like he burned all his energy in those first 2 games. So we might see a little more work from Powell this year going forward than usual. But grab him, especially if you have Matt Forte. You just want to, this is a great option to hold on to, and somebody, if you got some running back issues, add him. If you can't, get Terrance West. Number 5, Fozzy Whittaker, 32% owned. This is after if you can't grab West or you can't grab Bilal Powell. His presence in the pass game is what gives him value. And again, in the bye weeks, you're looking for a streamer that just doesn't give you nothing. When there's no one playing, obviously, when there's a hole in your lineup, that's 0. If you can get 6 to 8 to 10 points out of your streamer, you're doing well. What I just said at the beginning of this thing is proof of it. 2 weeks in a row, I've lost matchups within less than 5 points. That 4 and 5 points can come from these types of guys. So don't be afraid to get them. Again, Whittaker's versatile. He's a factor in the passing game there, and you know it's going to be more of a situation where they're going to have to run if Anderson is playing and Cam's not playing this week. So they're going to have to split up between Fozzy. And you know what else? Cameron Artis-Payne needs to be a waiver consideration too. I don't know his percent. But because of this situation, in case Cam doesn't play, their value is is going to be a little more spiked. So keep a lookout on that also. Number 6. Zach Ertz. Now, this is a bonus one. He's over my 60% threshold by 1%. He's 61% on. But for the fact that he's free in 39% of leagues tells you that you need to take advantage if you can. He got cut because he got hurt, and a lot of people in fantasy aren't patient. I've been a victim of that before. I think there's a couple of leagues where I had Ertz and I dropped him because it was looking like it was some other value out there. But these guys that you picked up, they're not going to outdo what Ertz is doing. And more importantly than that, it's because of the way the Eagles are playing right now. Zach Ertz is going to come into the fold and probably blend in seamlessly. This is a guy most of us drafted, so you definitely want to grab him if he's out there. Like I said, he's 1 point over my threshold, but I had to throw him in because 39% says he's not owned in a lot of leagues. So you definitely don't be afraid to cut bait of these tight ends. There isn't even 5 or 6 tight ends that I'd rather have than him. So that should answer your question about who you should be willing to cut to get Ertz if he's out there. Number 7, Dontrelle Inman. He's 0.7% owned. That's less than 1%. It looks like there might be a third head in this catch and attack. And it's gonna be needed because to fill the void of losing Keenan Allen, it couldn't have been just one guy. Travis Benjamin does not have the body for it. He's too small. Terrance Williams is too young. Dontrelle Inman is in between that. Not as talented as either, but you saw what he did this week. And Phillip Rivers is a lot like Drew Brees in the sense that he spreads it around. So it'll be hard to know which one of those guys do it. But all 3 of them are worth owning right now. And he's worth a speculative add, especially in these situations like now with bye weeks. And he's a great option in GPP tournaments and daily fantasy if any of you guys play that. Number 8, Zach Miller. Just under the threshold, 57% owned. And a number of people were expecting this coming into the season. And even more people, and we just spoke of DFS, were expecting it in DFS contests, and he did not disappoint going against that terrible Lions defense against the tight ends. But this is the thing. Over the next couple weeks, his matchups are going to be quite beatable. He has a solid rapport with Brian Hoyer, and it looks like, according to John Fox's comments, it looks like they're going to go with Hoyer. They're going to go with who's hot. So you might want to stick with Zach Miller if you got him. You good. You were in the boat drafting him, but he's 57% on, so it's a lot of people that don't have him. This is right underneath Zach Ertz in terms of who I like to have. So for all y'all that's still holding on to Antonio Gates or Martellus Bennett, please get rid of them. Jared Cooks and something like that. I'd rather have both of these guys than even Dennis Pitta. So that just tells you right there. Number 9 is another tight end, Hunter Henry. This list is tight end heavy, but that's a good thing because tight ends are hard to come by, dependable ones. And when you see somebody come out and assert himself like he's done in that San Diego pass attack, that's a guy you want to have. But his ownership is all dependent on Antonio Gates. But with Gates, it's not just is he healthy, he's also too old. So it's several reasons to where Hunter Henry cannot just get his snaps but take over the job because it's out there for him. Gates ain't going to be able to do this forever. And if injury and age are aligning and causing a double edge of going down, Hunter Henry might be having this job full time. So you don't want to be on the short end and not owning him if that happens. And if he misses another week, you definitely want to have him this week. And who knows going forward. Solid grab either way, solid investment. Number 10, Terrance Williams, 9% owned. And the reason why is because a lot of people thought it was going to be Cole Beasley. I even fell for it. But here's the thing. Cole Beasley is too small. He can't be that. He couldn't. Who would even thought he would partially take over what Dez would be missing? Terrance Williams is a much better option of who would be taking the downfield stuff, and being that he's a big target, Terrance Williams, and he's had success on the NFL level. He makes some bonehead plays, and you saw that a couple of weeks ago. But he's much bigger and much more talented. And depending on how Dez is, he is the person that you would want to have, to me, overall, from the Dallas passing attack. I don't know how long this injury is going to be, but we'll see. And I threw a bonus number 11 on there, and it's the Bills' defense, 36% owned. They're among the top scoring Ds this season, tied for 3rd place. But here's the beauty. The schedule over the next couple weeks. They face the Rams, which although their record is good and they've been showing out, ironically, without the help of Todd Gurley, they can be beat. And you can I like them as one of the best, if not the best, D of the week. And they face San Francisco in the week after that. This is beautiful. This is what you want. And if you're like me, I've always been the proponent of I don't care what defense I draft, as long as it's a decent one, because I'm going to be kicking them out and grabbing them all year. This is that team that makes the reason why. And you're seeing it. Everybody who invested all these high dollars in this team and that team, who's thought the Vikings D would be what they are? But they are. So either way, this is what you want to do, is grab a team like this if they're available. And they're going to be the number 1 defensive pick for me in DFS lineups, because it won't. I haven't looked at the amounts like on DraftKings or whatever, but the amounts probably won't be among the top. So that's a team that you want to pick so you can save money elsewhere. But either way, that ends the list, and I hope that helps some of you guys as usual. Follow me on Twitter. Send me any of your questions. Been slack on answering some of them, but well, not slack on answering them, but just not getting them to them immediately because I'm much more busy these days. But still send me your questions on Twitter. You can ask them down here below in the comments. And again, if y'all want some additional content that can personally help you, send me questions through Twitter or here, and we might have a little short video on Friday or Saturday. We're going to see how it goes, so give me your questions. All right, y'all have a good one. Good luck in week 5.